Hey, Marguerite, have you heard from Matt by any chance? How's he doing?
You're muted, Marguerite.
Sorry, I was on mute. I said I had lunch with him a few weeks ago. He seemed fine. Is there a reason why you're asking?
No, he just kind of disappeared. I've called him a couple of times. I think it was a week or two ago that I called him up. Everything's going good, but I don't hear from him every once in a while, and so just
He's
wondering.
apparently had some serious shoulder issues that require him to spend a lot of time in the whirlpool or whatever there at the health club. And then apparently when he gets home, he just collapses. He talked to me a couple of times when I was in the hospital, and I tell him my sad story, and he told me a little bit of his. It's not debilitating. I mean, he can get out, but I think he's just in some pain. I don't know. I haven't heard from him in a week.
Sue, do you see him at the pool? You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Who?
Matt Canizio, do you see him at the pool?
No, he swims outside now, so I never know if he's there.
Okay.
Is anyone else noticing a slowness about Apple Mail? I've used Apple Mail for 30 years and never any other mail service. And right now it is so slow to update. I'm not getting updates between my devices, and it's really frustrating.
I've noticed that also. I don't know what we can do about it, but
Well,
I've noticed it.
We have a lot of changes in iOS 15 in Monterey that deal with the iCloud stuff, so they may be doing some updates on that.
Yeah, I'm running the beta 5 of 18 or whatever it is, 15. And yeah, I've sent feedback. Just tell them what I just said. I said, I've been on Apple Mail for so long, and I wonder if the data center there in Maiden, North Carolina is overwhelmed and hadn't been scaled up to the level it should. Because I can't imagine, I mean, I imagine they have distributed mail processing at the various data centers around the country. I don't know that for sure, but I don't know.
Well, they had that big thing about they're now actively going after child pornography.
Yeah.
That was a big deal that happened this week, where they're going to start scanning messages and mail and iCloud storage. So it's possible that during this transaction that's messing some things up.
Could be. That was probably one of Apple's poorer messaging mistakes. They somehow it got out that they were going to scan everybody's iPhone.
Right.
And the privacy folks just went through the roof. And what's his name? The senior VP of software development came out and said, look, we've got multiple layers of control and what was the word he used? Any accountability that they go through. But the purpose, and they're not going to report anything or won't flag anything until they find more than 30 images, on one device.
Yeah, I'll be talking about that a bit today, but also keep in mind that scanning your images, they're scanning the hashtags.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not looking at the actual image unless they find more than 30 hashtags, and then they're actually having humans view it to verify that it is inappropriate, material, as opposed to some mistake in the scanning process.
I didn't mean to step on your program.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. But Yeah, that's and the thing is I'm not sure where the mixed message came up, because they were talking about this last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at last year's developers conference, they talked about it, and they talked about the fact that they were going to be, using the hashtags to quickly identify, child abuse, child pornography images, because those basically once those images are reported, there's a database that keeps up with them. So all they have to do is basically compare it to the database, and they'll find, they'll be able to find very quickly.
Yeah, I think the biggest controversy was they said what Facebook had found over 2 million images, and Apple had only found like 240 on theirs, because they were so much into privacy that they weren't checking the phones, they were checking their servers. And this change of actually checking the phones caused a bunch of upheaval amongst users. So, but there's really 3 programs. Again, I don't want to jump on but a lot of the news has mixed all of those 3 programs together, and now it's all jumbled. No one really knows, unless the people who are really on top of things know how the 3 programs work and where it, bothers people and how it affects your identity and your privacy.
Nice background image, John Weitz's. Did you take that shot?
Muted.
Very nice.
All right, well, I think we have pretty good assembly of people here, so why don't we get started today? Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having
Hello,
a good.
George, welcome.
Welcome.
So welcome to our August 2021 meeting. Regretfully, this may not be our soon to be last. With the way things are looking, we might be here for a little while longer. Fingers crossed, but not too confident on that one. Today, we're going to be doing a presentation on security and privacy. We've already been talking a little bit about that. We'll get into more details. There's a lot of questions that we'll try to deal with today, because privacy and security are very important to us, and they're very important to Apple, which is one of the reasons I'm very happy I have an Apple device, because they do take the time to consider the implications of all of the things they do. So I want to introduce our steering committee. Our steering committee is responsible for the direction of our meetings and our group, where we're going to go. So please, if you have questions, if you have suggestions, comments in any way, reach out to anybody on this list and let them know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see, what you might be willing to present for, at a meeting, anything along that line. So Matt, I don't think Matt is here today. No, he has popped in. Matt Canizio, David Day are now released from the medical facilities. So, yeah, David. Man. Yes, finally. Terry Maros, Terry, say hi.
Hello.
Marguerite Peterson, our most valuable player in this thing. She does everything. Mm-hmm. Appreciate her very immensely, and I hope she knows that. Marguerite, say hi to everybody. You're muted, Marguerite.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Ed Sheeran. Ed, say hi, Ed.
Morning, everybody.
Jeanne Sparks. Jeanne
Hi there.
is also one of our very important players in our game, but she's been having a nice reprieve, not having to do all those name tags every week, or every month. This year, it's going to be tough getting back to that, huh, Jeanne?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I am George Wagner, the current president, and Bob Wilkerson is Bob. Say hi, Bob.
Morning.
There's Bob. So again, if you have any questions, any feedback, please let any one of us know, and we will do what we can to make whatever you need happen. So today we're going to be talking about security and privacy. One of the big things you'll see a lot of is the term encryption. Apple uses encryption on their messages. It uses it on their servers. You can do encryption on the computer's hard drive. You have encryption in your emails. Encryption is basically a way of jumbling the data on one end that can then be unjumbled on the other end, but in between is basically an unreadable mess, which makes it very difficult for anybody to get any usable information from that information, even if they were to get their hands on it. One of the things that Apple did that I think was one of the smartest moves they ever made was they took encryption, the process, off of their servers and put it on our devices. And that does two things. One is it basically gives us our devices the control over it. So Apple, A, doesn't have to deal with it, and B, can't decrypt it if they wanted to. And the second part of that is that because they can't decrypt it, they no longer have to worry about somebody coming in with a court order saying, I want to see this person's information. They don't have to worry about going to court and fighting that, because there's nothing they can give them that they can use. It's all going to be encrypted. They can't decrypt it. It's like, here it is, have at it. And I think that was smart, both from a logistical standpoint and from a legal standpoint. Passwords, the bane of our existence. Passwords are the probably first line of defense in anything, is our password. So the simpler the password, the easier it is for somebody else to get into our stuff. The more complex the password, the harder it is for us to remember. One of the things that Apple has been doing is basically using biometrics, the fingerprint, the face scan, to allow us to have our passwords be entered in automatically. The advantage of that is that we can create a complex password because we're not going to have to type it in very often. It's just going to basically be our face or our fingerprints and say, yep, it's good, go ahead and put it in. But that does allow for more complicated passwords, which does make it much more secure. Two-factor verification. If you'll see that with a lot of things. What this does is basically it adds on top of the password. It requires that you have access to a approved device, whether it be your phone, your computer, whatever, that you can receive a code that is sent to that device that you then have to enter in the process, in the login process. So even if somebody were to get your password, unless they have access to one of your devices, they're out of luck. So it adds a second layer of protection. That's a very easy layer to deal with from the user standpoint, but makes it much more difficult for somebody to get into your stuff. Apple has gone a step further with two-factor authentication. That's different in the way that the information that you enter in is information from one of your other devices. For example, if you're on your computer, it may say, enter the passcode for your iPad.
Oh, God.
Apple doesn't know your passcode. It basically is having your iPad and your computer talk to each other to verify, yes, that is the passcode. Okay, we can continue on. So what that does is, A, it takes the text messaging out of the equation, because text messaging is not the most secure way of getting information securely to somebody. And it also, again, takes them out of the equation. So all the information is done between your devices. It's automated. It doesn't require a server on their end to make phone calls to send you the text information. It doesn't rely upon the network being up. It basically just makes the process even more secure. Okay. Biometrics, we talked a little bit about biometrics, the face scan, the fingerprint. There's still a recurring rumor that we're going to see the fingerprint scanner under the screen in future iPhones, which basically means you'll be able to do either face or fingerprint on the same device, possibly even a combination of the two if you wanted to.
George,
So what's
this
that?
is Sandy. George, I have a question.
Sure.
I have a fairly new MacBook Air Pro. Wait a minute, MacBook Pro Air. So anyway, sorry. My finger identification, I've tried several fingers. They just never last. They don't work. So I find myself constantly having to put in my password.
I'll tell you the what tends to be the most common problem with this is when you set it up, we're really careful about placing your finger on the sensor.
It accepted it, yeah.
That's the problem. The more precise you are during the setup, you have to be at least that precise when you use it. So during the setup, be sloppy. Make it learn as much about your finger. Go from edge to edge, tip to knuckle, and make it learn as much. But it'll actually take longer in the setup than the normal, because think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. You're giving it little pieces of your fingerprint,
Yeah.
and find a way to put them all together. It's going to keep asking for more. The sloppier you are during that setup, the better it will be during usage, because then no matter where you put your finger, oh yeah, I recognize that. But a lot of
That
people,
makes sense. Thank
yeah,
you.
and it's
Yeah.
not uncommon. People are they say, oh, I got to be real careful when I set this up. No. When you use it, be careful. But when you set it up, the sloppier you are, the better you are.
Thank you.
Additionally, there is, if you've already set up a finger, if you go into the settings, and you can basically, I haven't done it on the computer to know if it's the same way, but I'm assuming it's similar on the computer than it is on the phone and the iPad. If you
Yeah.
put your finger over the sensor when you're in the fingerprint settings, you will see your finger light up in the list of fingers when it recognizes it. So if you do that and it recognizes it, move it away from the center, kind of off to the edge of the finger and such, till it doesn't recognize it, and then kind of back off until you get it to recognize it a little bit, and then add a little bit more, add a little bit more each time you do that. Because every time you do that, if there's information it doesn't have, it adds to that database on that finger. So you can expand what it knows about the finger that you've already set up.
Thank you. That's great. That's good
You're
news.
And George, I found it useful for my phone and my iPad when I was using Touch ID to set up multiple fingers, so that I
Yeah.
didn't always have to have, the same index finger over the sensor.
I recommend at least two for a couple of reasons. One is you touch your finger, put a Band-Aid on, now what do you do? But also because if you're holding it, the thumb is usually the easiest one to do. But if it's sitting on the table, the thumb is the hardest one to do. Your index finger is much easier to do.
Right.
So if you use those two, if you're really concerned about somebody getting your fingerprint, which is extremely rare and difficult to make work, to fake somebody's fingerprint. But if you are concerned about that, the pinky is probably the least found fingerprint on anything. So, if you think about it, if you grab a mug, your pinky sometimes doesn't even touch the mug.
Yeah.
So that's your safest finger if you want to be real secure. All right. And double relay. Double relay is a new feature that Apple is introducing in iOS 15 with iCloud. And what that does, it's kind of a VPN, but it's not. So they're not even coming anywhere near calling it a VPN. But what it's basically trying to do, it's trying to obscure your identity on the internet so that people can't track you. They can't basically get information about you, because there are companies we won't mention names, Google, Facebook, that are basically tracking as much information they can about you, so they can sell that to advertisers and market to you. That's where they make their money. But there's also security issues. You go from one web page to another web page, and those pages are sometimes tracking where you're going. And that information is not only valuable to them as a marketing, but it also potentially could be valuable to them because it gives them access to something that they should have access to. So what the double relay does is it basically makes your IP address invisible. So nothing that you do on the web is tracked back to your IP address. So it makes you invisible, gives you some anonymity, gives you the peace of mind of knowing that whatever tracking is being done is not being tied to you. We'll know more about that as they release it. But what I've seen so far, it looks like it's a good implementation. It basically addresses a lot of issues, and it does it without. I mean, it's basically part of the iCloud package. I think you have to be in one of the paid packages to have it. I don't know that as a fact yet, but most people, if they're doing anything with photos, are going to be at least the 50 gigabyte option anyways. So it's a nice added bonus to the iCloud services. Antivirus and malware. Those are terms that Mac users are not as familiar with as they should be. The iPhones and the iPads currently are still pretty safe from that because of the way Apple implements software installation. It all has to go through the App Store, which means it's coming from Apple servers, which means Apple has looked at it and in theory has vetted it and made sure that it's clear and clean. There have been incidents where a company has released an update that had some issue, and Apple has the ability to then basically lock that down so that the update is not workable until they fix it. So it does give that peace of mind there. There's a fight right now with some of the publishers about that whole App Store being, too much control, and Apple, it's a monopoly and all this. I think it's a greed issue there. Could Apple, make the money, the fee less? I'm sure they could, but the peace of mind that it provides and the access that it gives to developers, I think is mind-boggling. A lot of these big companies that are making a big deal about this are not, remembering the individual programmer who had this really cool game or utility that if they wanted to sell it, they had to convince some big publishing house to sell it, who'd sell it for like $40 and they might see $1. Now you've got a mechanism where you can drop a program on the App Store, put it up for $5. Apple takes 30% to cover servers and marketing, everything that it does, and they get to keep 70% of that money. It was unheard of 20 years ago. So it's very useful, but it also gives us the security of knowing that everything is being looked at before it goes on any of our devices. That being said, the computer, on the other hand, was pre-App Store, and while Apple has kind of tried to make the App Store the default for the Mac as well, there's so many ways you can install things on the computer other than the App Store that there's still a lot of potential for installing something that you shouldn't. So having antivirus and malware is very useful. Even if the Mac, didn't have any viruses, there are so many Windows viruses out there that while they may not affect your Mac directly, you could end up being a typhoid Mary for all your Windows friends. So it's always a good idea to have those going as well to clean those out. There's a variety of free ones, Sophos, Malwarebytes, Avast, EVG, all have Mac versions, and those are all excellent programs. And they also have paid versions, which will give you additional internet securities that you may or may not want. But at the very least, pick up one of the free ones and get it on your system, just to give you that peace of mind, if nothing else. You'll hear, you've probably heard a lot about the Pegasus software that's supposed to basically infect the phones and tablets and such, and give them access to everything that's on there. There is a known issue, and Apple is addressing it just as everybody else is. But keep in mind, this only works if somebody has access to the phone. It's a targeted, they're going after particular people. So unless you are somebody more important than I know, I doubt you have any buddy that's going to be targeting you with Pegasus. But hopefully that won't even be an issue in the near future. But the list of phones that are infected is a very small percentage, and they are generally reporters or political people, or people that there's some reason that they were targeted. So we should be fine with that. All right, next, VPN, virtual private network. VPN has several advantages. One is similar to what we talked about with the double relay. It gives you the invisibility and anonymity on the web. It also gives you the ability to choose where it looks like you're coming from. So you can basically go somewhere and there's like a movie site to check out movies, and they say, hey, can I use your location to show you the theaters? And if you have it set for England, you're going to get theaters in England until you tell it otherwise. The advantage to that also is that there's a lot of content, video media content, that is regional, that you can't watch unless you're in a particular country or region. And so VPN does allow you the flexibility to say, okay, hey, I'm going to be showing from England, and I'm going to go watch Doctor Who now. And so it does give you that ability as well. I know Netflix has stuff that's on in different countries that isn't available here, and there's no legal reason you can't watch it. It's just because of the regions that they just don't offer it in your area. So, but there's VPN offers a lot of protection for that. The nice thing about that is your internet service provider, thanks to the politicians who scuttled the law that basically the bill was going to stop them from being able to sell any identifiable information about you. Your internet service provider has the ability to sell anything it knows about you to marketers if it wants to. And as well as I do, if there's money to be made, they probably will try it. So what a VPN does is it offers a secure connection to the VPN server. So all your internet service provider sees is you talking to their server, and it's encrypted so they can't even see what you said. From there, you will go to Yahoo or Google or wherever you're going to go. As far as that goes, make sure that you have a reputable VPN company, because they are going to see everything you do. ExpressVPN is one that I've heard some really good things about. One of the things that's really nice about it is it uses virtual servers, which means your session of going out and doing whatever you're doing, when you're done, it's shut down. It was in memory of virtual server. All your history on their end is gone. So they only know where you went while the session is active. Bear tunnels, use NordVPN. There's a variety of good ones. You can look out on any of the review sites and compare them. It's a monthly fee. Use it on your phone, on your iPad, on your computers, your laptops. It used to be that it was really only necessary when you left the house, but because your internet service provider does have the ability to use that information, it's not a bad idea to use it on a home machine as well. CSAM. That basically stands for what was it? Didn't write down the yet. It's children, sexual.
Blackberries are, weird.
Basically, it's the system for tracking media that contains sexually explicit or abusive images of children. Apple is basically taking a proactive stance on this, and it's scanning basically your iCloud photos for child pornography and child abuse images. They are using 2 separate databases, and basically will only use those that are in both databases. So basically giving you kind of that double check. It's not actually scanning your images, it's scanning the
Are you
hashtag
listening to something?
and images that have been reported to these companies and to the
Oh,
that
okay.
contain that are inappropriate. Basically, because there's always a chance that an image could be sent to you inadvertently and you don't know it, this will not trigger anything unless there's more than 30 images. So unless I see a preponderance of images, there'll be nothing.
That's what it looks like.
If you meet
What are you doing?
it will then basically be reviewed by a human being, so that the images are.
George, let me interrupt you for a minute. Would everybody please mute themselves so that we don't hear chatter in the background?
Who started it, huh?
Okay, super high priority.
Okay, Ken Wayland, could you please mute yourself?
I'm doing it. Hang on.
That was, I couldn't see it. Okay. So it's a new thing that they have put into place. There's some privacy questions, but it's all in all, it's a very good thing. Apple's trying to create safeguards to make sure that it's not overreaching. They're also putting in safeguards to make sure that it is not, there's no chance of it being exploited for other uses. A lot of the people are concerned that this will be used to censor things, and that's not Apple's intent. And Apple's, putting very good controls in here to try to make sure that that can't happen. Okay. They've also added in messages. It's a tool that basically will warn children and their parents if the incoming image is sexually explicit. The image will be blurred. There'll be a warning put up, and then have resources, and basically they will have the option to, if it is an image that you want, somebody sent it to you for a particular reason, you can then view the image. But the initial thing is to give you that protection, to give you that opportunity to say, oops, we don't want the kids seeing this. Okay. So it is, again, not going to be a arbitrary, no, you can't view this. It's just basically giving that little added level of protection. Okay, in security and privacy, what are the weaknesses? Operating systems, of course, have their weaknesses. They have their security issues. We all love to joke about Windows being the Swiss cheese of security. Mac does have some weaknesses as well, and a lot of it's inherent in the fact that these are operating systems that were originally created long before a lot of these issues were even recognized. So adding the security on an operating system that was already in place is a challenge, and that's where the virus and malware software comes into play a lot of times. That's where the constant updates go. Very important. If you have an update, especially if it says security updates, install it. It's the only way to keep the operating systems as solid as it can be. Now, an update is different than an upgrade. An update is when you go from 10.1.1 to 10.1.2. Okay? An upgrade, they'll also change the name of it. It's when you go from Big Sur to Monterey. That's an upgrade. Upgrades, well, I'm not saying don't do that. Upgrades require you to make sure you look before you leap. because there are times when you have an upgrade that it will break something. An old program you have that's no longer being supported, and you want to make sure that before you make that leap to the to upgrade your operating system, that everything of importance to you is either going to work, or you have to upgrade that software before you make the leap. Applications and apps. Some applications will have issues with them where they allow somebody to sneak in through a hole in their application and do things that they're not supposed to do. Data mining, sometimes access to other things. So there'll be a roundabout way for them to get into something that they normally couldn't get into. Again, with the App Store on the iPhones and iPads, anything on that line is usually found very quickly and fixed very quickly, and can be blocked until it's fixed very easily. On the computers, it's a little more difficult to do that, but Apple is trying to make that similar experience on the computers through the App Store on there as well. Wi-Fi. When you're not at home, you're on a Wi-Fi network, that is a public Wi-Fi network. It lacks a lot of security options, and there are ways for people to basically scan whatever data is being sent across that Wi-Fi network. That's one reason why the VPN software is very useful, because when you're on a public Wi-Fi, all they're going to get access to is your scrambled conversation with your with your VPN server. So it's very secure and serves them no purpose. So if you're only going to do VPN when necessary, that's when necessary, when you're on a public Wi-Fi. Phishing. Phishing is a term that is talking about when somebody is trying to get you to respond to their email that they sent, let's say from Bank of America. It's not actually from Bank of America, but they want you to think it is, so that you'll then click on the link in the email, log into your Bank of America account, which actually is a fake site that they've created. And as soon as you do that, you now have actually given them your real login information for Bank of America, and that's how they then get into your account. So it's very important with phishing, always when receiving an email from somebody, verify by looking at the email address, is it coming from the appropriate domain? For example, if it's Bank of America, it's going to say so-and-so at bankofamerica.com or BOA.com, whatever their domain is. If it's coming from Apple, it's going to say from apple.com. The last word before the .com or the .edu or the .gov, that's the domain. If that doesn't match what you're expecting, assume it's not from them. If you think the email is legit, but you're not sure, don't click on the link in the email. If you need to go to Bank of America, fine. Go to a bookmark you've created or go to Bank of America manually and log in. That way you know for sure you're going where you think you're going. Whenever you have a link in an email and it says www.apple.com, that's a label. The underlying link may be something totally different. If you put your cursor on it on the computer, or if you tap on it and hold on the iPads and iPhones, you can see the actual address. That's what you want to look for. And again, look for the domain. Now, in a link, it could be a little bit more difficult because it might be a really long, involved link. Okay. So what you want to look for is, at some point, there's going to be a .com or .gov. Look for that domain. If it has a .com / something, you can ignore the slash. That's basically just giving a particular location within that server. And anything to the left of the domain.com is unimportant for this purpose as well. All you want to look for is that last domain. If it says apple.e.com, E is the domain, not Apple. That's the last thing before the .com. Again, if in doubt, don't. Okay? Because the weakest point of any of our devices is us, the user. We can override any safety protocols that Apple and others have put into place. So if we are convinced to do that, then it's gonna happen. If we get a message on screen saying, "Oh, you've got viruses on your computer, click here or call here," and we call them, we let them have control of our system, we've just bypassed all of those safeguards. Okay. You will never get a message from Apple popping up from a web page saying you've got viruses. Never. System messages have a unique look to them. They are not in Safari. If you get a system message and you're in Safari, it's just a Safari page that somebody's made to look like a system message. Okay. So that's very important that you understand the difference, because there's a lot of people out there that are doing just that. You go to a web page and they have a little script that brings up this new window that looks like it's important, and it's not. Okay. Again, if in doubt, don't feel free to contact me or somebody you know that has some background in computers that can tell you, yes, that's okay, or no, don't do that. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that phone call after they spent $300 on some company that remoted into their computer. So that's definitely not what you want to do. Okay, so basically, I think I've tried to hit all the biggies. There's probably a lot of questions. If we don't mind, I actually need to take a very quick restroom break. So if you guys want to grab coffee, we'll come back and we'll answer some questions.
Sounds good. Oh, to everyone else out there, in our chat, I have added syncs to some of the things that George was talking about. Sophos, the new child protection schemes that Apple has been putting together, and the Pegasus spyware, which has been in the news in the last week or so.
I'd like to add a few minor things here. I'm noticing that there are some people that don't know there's a chat going on in the background. If you're on your computer and you move your cursor, your menu bar will pop up. It'll give you the mute, the video, it'll give you the chat. If you click on the chat, you'll see the list of chats on the right-hand side of your computer. And the things that Terry has just mentioned, that he posts as we speak, links to things that of course will be on Facebook and on our website later on. But just be aware there's a chat going on if you are interested in looking at it.
I got a question, Terry.
Yeah.
I have Sophos on my iMac. Should I also get Pegasus spyware?
I've only been thinking about, the Pegasus thing is brand new, but what my understanding is that it's on an iPhone, it's almost impossible unless someone actually has physical attachment to it. So
Correct.
You're not going to get Pegasus, like you would a traditional, virus or a worm or a Trojan horse or anything like this, that they have to have actual physical contact with the phone in order to really do anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
The thing about Pegasus that's important to note is not that, oh, I might have Pegasus on my phone. It's that they were able to do it. Yeah, physical access is required, but the fact they were able to do it the way they did was definitely a big wake-up call, and hopefully we will see a update in the near future that basically prevents something like that from even being able to be done physically.
So Pegasus essentially infects the iPhone, not the iMac.
Basically, from what I've gathered, it can basically be done on a variety of devices.
Yeah.
But the phone is the one that was really targeted because that's what people have with them all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Specifically, they were really going after reporters and political figures, military figures. If I remember correctly, this was why they were able to track down that one reporter that they then captured and ended up killing. So it's a big deal for those phones that it's on, but it's not something the average person really has to worry too much about. There are more immediate concerns for us, and that's the phishing and the malware and the viruses. Those are going to hit everybody pretty much universally. So you want to make sure you have programs in place to check and prevent those from causing problems. Ransomware has been a big thing right now. Ransomware basically encrypts your entire hard drive and then says, hey, send me money to fix it. The single best way to protect yourself from ransomware is to have a good backup going. Right? Even if somebody were to encrypt your drive and wipe everything, you've got a backup. It's a pain in the rear, but it's not the end of the line. So if you don't have a time machine backup on your device, on your Macs, please spend the $75 to $100 for a decent sized external hard drive, plug it in, and when it asks, do you want to use this for time machine, say yes. It's as simple as that.
George, Pam and I saw a new phishing example yesterday. She was working on her iPad and encountered an offer from what appeared to be CVS Pharmacy, looking for a survey of her use of their stores. And if she completed the survey, she could get access to a pool of products worth up to $100 if she completed the survey. So she did. I mean, she showed me the email, and it looked exactly like it had come from CVS. We didn't go into it deep enough, really. So she got to the end and chose what she wanted for her prize, if you will. And they asked her for a credit card number so that they can charge the shipping on this free gift. Well, she went ahead and did that. And they then dutifully charged her account for, I don't know, $8 or something like that to verify that it was an operational credit card number. Within 10 minutes, she got a call from the bank saying that we suspect this may be a fraud call. So, and fortunately they caught it, we stopped it, and they blocked that user from ever contacting her account again. So anyway, that's just another example of how devious they're getting to try to get credit card numbers and things.
Yeah, always be on the lookout too for the scammers are getting trickier and smarter. And so you may get a CVS, but if you look, the CVS domain that there may look legit, but compared to actual CVS's, sometimes you'll see they'll put a .net or .biz or something else in there, and everything good. So it's very, very important that you pay attention to those domains, because those are the things that will tip you off. Sometimes I don't even try. Sometimes you go in there and it says, some weird domains, like, okay, this definitely is not Amazon, but oftentimes they are very tricky. And the websites that you're going to log into, it will look just like it. So the only time I really tell you to click on a link is when it's something you're expecting. For example, if you do a password reset, they're going to send you a link to reset your password. Not only are you expecting it, but you can't reset the password without that. When we send you the link to the Zoom meeting, you're expecting it every month, so it should be there. And also, if you look at it, you can tell it's a Zoom link by looking at the content that's in there. It has a reference to Zoom, so you have that verification of that as well. Again, if in doubt, say no and then look it up. And don't hesitate to email or text or call me or anybody else that has a little know-how on this. We're more than happy to help you on this. Any other questions on not just security browsing, on anything? If you have some unrelated questions, feel free to voice those.
Of course, I have questions, George, but I think Linda Weldon has a question too. Linda, did you want to ask a question? She's muted.
Terry answered it in the chat. It was just something about the fact that so many websites that I go to, there'll be a little blurb that says, update your device by Friday, and I don't. And the next week it's update your device by Wednesday, and I don't. And I'm just wondering what that's all about. But Terry says it's probably not a good idea to follow those links, so I don't. That was all. I'm sure other people see those too.
If you ever want to update your device, yeah, don't follow any like you can go to on the Mac, just go to the App Store and any updates will be shown there. On the iPhones and iPads, first of all, there'll be a notification when there are updates, but if you go to software updates in your settings, it will check to see if there's any updates to that. Your apps should automatically update if there are updates for those. So yeah, there's no reason to do it in link. You may get a message when you open a browser saying that this browser, your operating system is not, optimal for this browser, but that's going to happen when you launch it, not after you've been using it for a while. You'll also see a lot of websites will have an option to send you notifications. Please say no unless it's something you really, really want to be notified of, because otherwise you're going to get notifications out the wazoo, and you'll be missing actual notifications that you might need about emails and updates and such.
The one thing I could add though is whenever there is an upgrade to the OS, you will see a lot of updates from all of your apps as they are changing and updating their code to match the new operating system updates. So as we get Monterey, you'll see a lot of your apps will want to have to update in the background, or will ask you to update in order to use the new features or have to deal with the new security of the latest OS update.
There is also an issue with the new ask to track option. If you allow them to ask, some of them, Facebook being one of them, doesn't ask, is it okay? They say, oh, you need to allow this, say yes. They don't give you a no. You're stuck on that screen unless you quit the app. If you have the don't allow to ask option turned on, they can't ask, it just works fine. The reality is that most of the companies who really, really want to track are doing that because that's how they make the money in marketing. But I recommend just enabling the don't allow them to ask option. To go into settings here. Yeah, it's settings, privacy, and then tracking. You have allow apps to request to track. Make sure that is off. Okay. If they're allowed to ask, some of them don't ask properly. They don't give you the option to say no. If you have that turned off, they just can't track you. Yeah, I find my gauge to determine whether or not something Apple does is beneficial to us is how loud the advertisers complain. The more they complain, the better it is for us. So, Margaret, you said you had some questions?
First of all, I wanted to mention a phishing email that I received some weeks ago, and I am in the habit of always checking the email, sending email address. It was an Apple address and it was a phishing note. If you get something like that, you can and should really forward that to Apple. You can Google where to send a phishing note for any company, any bank, an Apple, any reliable organization. They will have an email out there where you can send things that you suspect are phishing. It helps them to work on their own security. That's just my ad. The questions that I have.
Hang on, I wanted to make a comment on that. Which brought up. Most companies, it's usually either abuse at or fraud at and then their domain. So that's very useful. I actually ran into a unique phishing experience just recently. I got an email from a client, and then I replied to the email, and I did catch initially that the email was theirs, but the reply to email was somebody else's.
Okay.
Somebody had basically put their email address in the email to make it look like it was, you know, legit from them. And then the reply went to the other email, and they started asking about, hey, I need you to send a Google Play card to my nephew. I can't get to the store right now. Can you do that? And then I'll pay you back. And it's basically a scam to get you to, you know, send money to them. But because of the way they did it, that first email was legit, had their email address in it, but they must have gotten that from somewhere and put it in the email. And then when I hit the reply, it was no longer talking to that same email. So I wasn't talking to my customer, I was talking to somebody else. And luckily I caught it when they asked for the Google Play cards. I got suspicious, and I looked at it and said, wait a minute, that's not their email address. So be aware that they're getting trickier. So I'm sorry, Margaret, go ahead with your question.
No, that's okay. Terry is answering a lot of this on the chat. So if you're interested, you might want to check over. You mentioned earlier that when we upgrade our operating system, this is the upgrade to the next one, we should check that our apps are still working with the new one. Well, I just got into a problem. Terry's well aware of it. My financial app got messed up with the last update from Apple. How do you check that your current apps will work with a new operating system?
Generally, you'll have to go to the manufacturer's site, and there's somebody's usually posted that question in their fax, or you can pose it yourself. But most companies will have whenever there's a new operating system coming out, they'll have a compatibility notice about it. The issue that a lot of times you'll run into, though, is that they're talking about the current version, and you might be a couple versions back. So you might need to check some of the forums to see if the older version will work. Most companies will only check so far back, and if your software is too old that they're not checking it, it's not going to be on that compatibility list, because they'll usually say such and such a version and newer work fine, or there's a new version coming out and that version will work fine. So that gives you your cutoff. But if you're before the cutoff, then you're going to have to check. And it's not saying that it won't work. It's saying that we haven't and will not be testing prior to this, whatever version they list.
Well, that's apparently what happened here.
Yeah, hopefully you're within that version. But if you're not, then you'll probably have to go to the forums and do a search for, your program, the operating system, and compatibility, and see what comes up.
The other question I have, obviously, we've all been talking about Sophos for a very long time for your computers. Do we still not need antivirus programs, malware protection for our iOS devices?
As far as I know, there has, unless you jailbreak your device, as far as I know, there's been no virus or malware on the iPhones and iPads. So at this point, it is unnecessary for that. There are other security issues, VPN, some other things that you can have added protection for. But I think the double relay that Apple's coming out with will address a lot of those issues. And that's not so much on your device directly as using your device in certain places can give people access to information. And that's what the double relay will hopefully address completely. But yeah, at this point, I don't see any need for virus and malware on the iOS or iPad.
Yeah, my understanding is all the apps are sandboxed, so they really are kind of encapsulated in their own bubble. So even if that one program is corrupted in some way, it really can't spread wildly throughout the home machine.
Yeah.
So that's they've had that since. That's why the tablets and stuff do not have a traditional file management system. Everything is kind of blocked off so that one app could be compromised and then destroyed, and then without actually messing with the rest of the device.
And that's because of the iOS operating system was designed post malware virus, so they were aware of and could address the issue from the ground up. With the Windows and Mac operating systems that have been out for ever, those things didn't exist early on. So once they did, it's like, okay, how do we fix what we have now? We can't say, okay, we're no longer going to let you install software like you've been installing for decades. That just wouldn't work. People wouldn't go for that. With the iPhones and iPads, that's the way it was from the beginning. So there was no, hey, why'd you take that away from me?
That's also a really good reason to get a lot of your apps, if you can, from the App Store, because they have been checked over, scrubbed, and even when the manufacturers make updates, those updates are also double checked to make sure that malware does not have some backdoor to get into your system.
Yeah. And the nice thing is if something happens, if an update comes out and it severely compromises the app, Apple can basically lock the updates so that basically you can't install it until they fix it. So Margaret, did you have some other questions?
Not at the moment. Thank you, George.
Anybody else have any questions they want to propose?
George, I'd like to make a comment that you mentioned the Files app. And I can't remember whether this is just part of iOS 15 or if it actually is supported also in iOS 14. They have done a lot of work making the Files app much more useful than it was initially. I didn't use it much initially because I was using Dropbox and Evernote and places like that. But now the Files app has gotten, and again, I'm on the beta, the iOS 15 beta, and it's pretty damn nice. It allows you to set up nested files. You can move files using the action box on most pages on iOS, where you can click on the box with the arrow and send it as an email or whatever. One of the choices now is save to files. And you can save a screenshot or a document, a PDF or whatever to files. And then that file can be shared with anybody that you choose. So, here, Pam and I are working on this house remodel, and we're referring to builder quotes and estimates and all this kind of stuff. And it is so cool to be able for me to take a document or a message, put it in files, and I know instantly it's updated on her devices as well. So it's become very, very useful. And now with the M1 processor, which they're not really using yet in terms of its power, I think we've got a potential for a seriously useful and capable filing system.
Yeah, I know some of what you mentioned is usable on iOS 14. You can move things between them, but I'm assuming, I haven't worked on the beta yet, but I'm assuming that they have taken that even further in 15. But yeah, they keep adding the functionality. Initially, files was just iCloud stuff, and they added the hooks for Dropbox and other locations, and they're basically trying to streamline the interaction between those different services.
Hey, George, Ken
Yeah.
Gassman here. Two quick questions. Number one, can an Apple computer actually get encrypted, and then can someone demand ransomware? I know it happens with PCs, but have you heard has it happened with Apple?
I can't say specifically that yes, it has it or not, but yes, it can. I mean, it's basically the Macs are not immune to these things. So yeah, there's ways people can access malware and viruses to do those type of things. So yeah, it's always a potential. So it's definitely, like I said, hang on a second, I got a train coming here. The downside to Zoom. So yeah, so it really, virus and malware can help with those type of things, but the single biggest protection you have is that backup, because that's all your data, and that's true for everything. No matter what happens to your system, if you have a good backup, you have the peace of mind of knowing that you're safe.
Okay.
That being said, you also want to have offsite backup. What I recommend to most people is buy at least two hard drives and rotate them between, and never have everything at one location at the same time. Take the drive from home, like to a bank safe deposit box, bring the other one back. That way you do have that peace of mind knowing, heaven forbid the house burns down, you still have your data.
Yeah, that's what I do. Second question is anybody else updated to the latest Big Sur? And the reason I ask that, I just discovered this morning. My computer updated to Big Sur. I believe it was yesterday. They send the automatic updates, and the output for my headphones doesn't work anymore with my new Mac Mini M1. So I'm actually on my MacBook Pro here right now, but I didn't know whether anybody else had experienced that problem, or whether anybody else automatically updates Big Sur or the operating system.
Then that happened to me. I tried to get on a Zoom call, I don't know, earlier in the week, Thursday, I guess, and I couldn't because the input device was completely gone. Somehow the drivers for the new, for the new video that I was using did not get loaded after the update. So I would say check the drivers, check the input sources in your systems, or in your general specifications, whatever that session is, and make sure that it hasn't changed. Mine changed.
You know what? You could have been speaking Greek. I have no clue what you just said, but bless your heart, thank you.
Part of it is probably my addled brain being unable to say it very clearly. And for
No. When you say check drivers, I don't know how to check drivers. I mean, the last time I heard the word drivers was back when printers needed drivers, which they don't anymore.
The principle is the same. It's just a different device.
You and I may have to get together.
If you go into system preferences and go into sound, does the device show up as an option?
Yes, it does. And that's what's interesting. And I clicked on it, and it went from, it said active, but it doesn't work.
Do you have the sound menu option on the main menu bar, the little sound icon?
Yeah, I do. And it's turned up.
No. Hold the option key down and click on it.
Okay.
And you will see your input and output devices.
Okay, wait, option. Yeah, external microphone and headphones. Check.
Yeah. Basically, on the new machine, the M1, see if those options are checked when you're trying it on there.
Okay.
But
Well, I
yeah,
actually did earlier you probably saw me at 9:30 this morning, flitting around here, plugging things in and checking all that kind of stuff. And I went into system preferences to make sure that it was all right. So, but nobody else is, well, David's encountered it and I'll figure out something. I don't know. You go on a forum, is that how you do it? Or do I call Charlotte Street Computers and say, fix it?
well, the Charlotte Street's probably not going to be able to fix it. They're hardware only. This is a software issue.
Okay.
If you're going to call anybody, Apple would be the one to call.
Okay.
But what I would first try is just going in, and the fact is a USB device, correct?
Not USB. No, it's the little tiny, the plug.
Little phono plug.
Yeah,
It's straight-
phono plug.
No, I mean, if it's analog audio, there should be no driver necessary for it.
Well, that's what I would have thought too.
Sometimes you need to do a reboot. Some of these updates cannot be done while the device is active. And so they have to be completely rebooted in order for the update to be done during the boot process. So that, and that's just a weird, sometimes some things just don't update until that's done. And there's really no way to tell unless you reboot it and then all of a sudden it comes alive.
And I restarted. That was the other thing I was doing this morning while we were waiting. I restarted the computer and so, okay, thank you. I'll figure something out.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I use Bluetooth, and when I had upgraded, all my Bluetooth devices did not connect. So I had to go back and repair all of them for the new upgrade from Big Sur. And they work fine now. This morning, I used these headphones, and I didn't pair this one yesterday, and I had to go back and pair it this morning. It works fine now. So, you know, and of course I had to reboot the computer and everything to make everything pair again.
Hey, Ken, did you try a different headphone in the Big Sur?
Yes. Well, actually, it's speaker. I got headphones and then I got an external speaker, and
it worked or didn't work?
Did not. It's like it's dead. And I fiddled with it. And here's what's interesting. When I had the earphones on and plugged it in, I could hear it scratching. You know how when you plug it in, sometimes it scratches, you get a little static, and I could hear that. So I knew something was happening, but when it came to listening to you all, it didn't work.
Do me a favor, an old kind of bug that was around way back when, go in and turn mute in the system preferences sound. Select mute and see if the sound works, and then unselect mute.
Ah, that's an intriguing thing. Turn it off, turn it back on. Okay. I see sound right here. I'll take a look at that. Okay. I actually don't see a mute option. Oh, I'll fiddle with it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there it is down there at the bottom. Okay, let's mute. Now let's unmute. Okay, I can't test it right this second, but I just did that. Thank you.
No problem. There was a bug at one point where the mute was inverted. So when you had the mute on, it was unmuted. When you had the mute off, it was muted.
Oh, geez.
So anybody else have any questions?
Just on a general note, I had a problem with the 11.5.1 update. I know you were on beta, David, so your situation's a little different. My Mac would not update to the latest, to that 5.1. Now we have a 5.2 out there. My MacBook Air wouldn't. They stopped at 15 and 10 minutes. I Googled it. Other people had that problem. I worked for several days to try to get it updated. I left it alone and it did its thing overnight and it worked. I don't know what was wrong with these updates. Hi, Matt.
Hello. I was so intent on remembering it was a friend's birthday today. Guess what I forgot about?
Yeah, we noticed.
Yeah, I can only do one thing at a time. Sorry. I'm awake. I was asleep. You woke me up, Marguerite.
Okay, I called him to hang on for the steering committee meeting, and that's what he's complaining about.
No.
Well, I think unless anybody else has any questions, I think we're good for today. Thanks for coming, everybody, and we will see you next month. Same bat time, same bat channel. Well, different bat channel.
I do have one comment to make.
Sure.
I got an ad from Apple about the Apple Card. Does that work like a regular credit card?
It does, and actually has some really cool features that you don't get with most credit cards. They don't have any late fees. You'll have interest, but no late fees. It can be set up for auto payment from your balance from your bank account. It has access to all your information of your transactions, so you can see where you're spending your money. And the card itself has no number imprinted on it. So even if you happen to lose the card, or if somebody sees the card, they can't get the number off it. So it definitely has some neat features.
George, if I could
I
jump in.
have an Apple Card, and it has replaced every other card that I use. It's really neat. It's the features and the functionality is just absolutely amazing. Really good.
So
Same
it's not
here,
like a
Bob.
Visa, is it like a Visa or MasterCard? You get,
It is a MasterCard.
all right, thank you.
I have it also, and I agree with Bob. I have never seen such an easy checkout. Once it's in the system, that thing just does it all. You don't have to put any numbers, nothing in there. It's wonderful.
So you do get a real card.
You get a real card, but there is nothing imprinted on it. You can't see it. And once you've entered the information into your system, it will ask you anytime, let's say you're buying online, it will ask you, do you want to check out with Apple Card? It knows it. And if you click yes, you don't put anything in, it's done.
Okay, thank you.
The only problem with it is that it runs through Chase. And Chase is one of they're on my list as far as banks go, but apparently not on my total list, or I wouldn't have an Apple
I
MasterCard.
thought they were through Saks Goldman.
It's Goldman.
Sachs.
It's Goldman Sachs. No question about it.
Not Chase.
Well, Chase and Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and all those are
Right.
one and the same to me.
Okay. I want to butt in here. I attempted to get a card and I was rejected 3 times in a row. And the reason was I did not have an iPhone. I was using my iPad. And as part of the application process, you have to take a picture of your license. And it's only geared to an iPhone taking your picture, not an iPad. So I kept getting rejected, and I got calls direct from Goldman Sachs saying, the picture's no good, the picture's no good. So their recommendation was try it again when you get an iPhone. So just in case you have problems, taking a picture of your license, that's what's going to happen.
All right, okay, how often is interest charged? Is it like the end of the 30 days or is it as of purchase date?
It has a grace period. I believe it's 30 days, but I wouldn't swear by it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it.
About the card, do you have to give them access to your bank account?
Yes,
No,
I did.
No.
no, don't. Now if you wanted to auto pay, you'll have to give it the banking information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is auto pay? Do they take it out of your account at the end of each 30 days or?
You can basically say at whatever date you choose, I want it to either pay off the balance or pay minimum such and such an amount, and it will basically take that out of your account automatically.
Right.
You don't have to set up auto pay; it's just convenience. So if you like paying off your balance, you just say, okay, on the date it's due, pay off the balance, and take it from this account, and we're good to go.
Okay.
There are
so
a couple of, Go
You can
ahead.
actually set the date to have it paid, or do they tell you when it's due?
Well, they'll tell you when it's due, but you can choose the date that you want to pay it, whether it be like maybe a few days before that or whatever.
Okay.
Hey, Richard, Ken
Yes.
Gassman here. There are a couple little subtleties that you need to know about. I actually did get the card as well as have the card on my phone. If you use the card, your cash rebate is 1% less, okay? Which you may say is not a big deal. On the other hand, after 2 or 3 months, I had racked up $250 some in credits that I used to apply against this month's balance. So, I mean, there's some serious cash rebates that you get back from using the Apple Card. And then there are 2 other interesting glitches. Neither the iPhone, well, the iPhone won't work at Lowe's and the iPhone won't work at Walmart. And those are 2 very shopped stores here in Brevard. And that's because their systems won't take it. Just so you know.
The card itself,
Card itself will work, but the iPhone will not work. You can't hold it up. But Ingles, it works great. Food Matters, it works great. Places like that.
well, that's because Walmart is basically has their own competing one that they don't want to support anybody else's. They just want you to use theirs, and theirs is tied directly to a bank account, so there's no credit card protections to it.
So in that case, you just use the real card, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or shop somewhere else.
I want to butt in for anybody that lives by themselves. Consider the executors of your estate and turn on all these auto pays for your credit cards so that they do get paid off when you die. All right. Otherwise, your executor is going to have a big mess on their hands.
On a note, one of the other things that Apple is supposed to be introducing is the digital legacy, where basically you put all the information about your digital life so that when you pass, that information is passed along for heirs so they can get into your accounts and close out things, fix things. And I think that's a very neat thing.
All right, thank you very much.
Matt, do you plan to go somewhere?
You know, I make my final arrangements every month or so. This is it. They're just about wrapped up. It's only taken me 6 or 8 months to do it. Yeah.
Hey, my parents sat me down one day and said, "Here, see this box? This is the box that our ashes go into. It's already prepaid. We're gonna keep it in this closet right here." So it's like, I don't want to know this right now. Thanks.
You do. Yes, you do.
Yes, you do. And while I was making that particular arrangement, and this is very pertinent for what's going on today, I had a good chat with the gal running the cremation services. We had a lot of laughs. But anyway, I asked her, I said, seriously, have you noticed any increase in the mortality rate in the Asheville area with the COVID? She says the numbers are off the charts. She said, speaking with other morticians, we have never seen these kind of numbers anywhere. She says, what people are forgetting about the COVID is that there are people staying home and dying. They're afraid to go to the hospital, or they just got sick and thought they would tough it out. And so these are the numbers that we don't know about. And now we're seeing the same thing with so many COVID cases going into the hospitals. Hospitals have been asked to postpone elective surgeries and stuff like that. So this is a very serious thing about the mortality rates that people don't realize. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't pre-planned my cremation.
Do we have any other cheerful news?
Yeah, I'm waiting for LDs to open.
I think I heard September 2, but it's not a confirmed date.
There's many YouTube videos telling you what to buy and what not to buy at LDs. So I'm ready to shop.
Well, this might not be a surprise to anybody here, but I'm going to be 74 in October, and that's a shock to my system.
Okay, let's go.
Rob, you get over it.
Yeah.
It just happens, my friend.
Ed, Ed,
That little violin, the smallest violin playing just for you.
I will say that you can complain about being 74, but it's better than the alternative.
I'll agree with that. I can still remember my own name.
There we go.
All right, one last question about the Apple Card. Can I get one for my wife?
Yeah,
Or do you need a separate card?
Well,
Yes, you can.
they
I
just
have one for my wife.
Yeah, they just recently allowed you to have a linked account. It was initially each person had to have their own account, but they have changed that. I don't know the details on it, but they have changed it now that you can have 2 cards on the same account.
All right, thank you. All right, see you all next Saturday or next month. Thank you. Have a good time.
Bye-bye.
Good
Bye.
weekend.
Buddy.
Thank you, George.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Hey, Matt, are you still up?
I'm here.
Yeah, I want to call you after our meeting today.
Yeah, I know. I've been waiting for weeks. You and I were supposed to get together with something and you never got back.
Well, doggone.
So there. I want the whole world.
Like I said before, I can